updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Kandace and Denise. Let's go.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. On Tobago Updates, viewers, we are now being joined by Mr. Jesse Taylor, Cultural Officer in the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. Good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, Kandace, and good morning to all of Tobago, each and every one of you, and the division staff and the staff at Culture. Good morning.
All right, so we are getting into the winding up of the Tobago Heritage Festival. Today is Black Rock, the sea call for Black Rock, and Pan Festival, right? So tell me how that's going.
Well, I haven't been able to be there just yet, but last time when I was speaking with the coordinator, Larry Paul, all systems would go. I know that this morning by now they should have concluded what would have been the usual procession through the streets, the wake-up call, and they should be just about putting in some seed and hopefully some fish. And then you should move into a lot of activities during the day, including your fish fry competition, cook your catch, whatever, and netball, a series of other cultural entertainment, and most notably the infamous blessing of the boat, the christening of the boat, which really is about how you position the boat for greatness through the reach of the ancestors. And then later tonight is going to be the Pan Night, and it also is an indication and a formal marking of what is going to be the Pan Day celebration on the 11th of August. So, all in all, I think that everything is in order, and I should be able to know much more when I leave here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But tomorrow is the big day, the grand finale, Emancipation Day.
Footprints to freedom, indeed. It's a long walk to freedom, coming out of all those, the period of slavery and, the bitterness and the plant work and the plantation and all that. But in the midst of all that, there's joy, and joy is where your heart is full of joy wherever it resides. And so tomorrow is a statement that speaks to a true homage, how we celebrate, how we honor, and how we pay reference to those who have really contributed to those things that we have largely been able to use as selling points, and how we use a tourism product, and as we inspire those to the future. So tomorrow we'll have a ceremony that sees the first set of incarnated present people being honored, 3 of who are posthumous, and then we have 17 other honorees who have in many ways have given meritorious service in so many different ways to help us ensure that we have this heritage that we consider to be our legacy and that which we cherish.
Of course, the theme of this year's heritage is homage. And, one of the things that was mentioned when Heritage was launched was that need to pay homage to those that gone before. So how are we paying homage to them tomorrow?
Right.
When we think about recognition, how are we really recognizing them?
So you would have recognized earlier in the first set of planning stages, the Assistant Secretary Megan Morrison would have spoken about the need for us to really document and how do we pay reverence, how do we honor and really celebrate these people who are really the backbone and those on whose shoulders we stand, and so to speak, who would have been able to create and pave the way, standing beard. And the list is so long, and tomorrow he's one of those persons we seek to again honor for creating an avenue, not just for taking the culture from strength to strength and from village to village, but using it as a tourism product. So the intention is to start by honoring these chosen few, and then to have it repeated in other areas as we go forward, perhaps at Independence Republic, so that we truly pause and document, because we're doing profiles on each of the persons that we honor, and we seek to have those put into our archives, so that a long time from now, many of the people who will come long after we've been gone, is that they can be able to see what has been done, how it has been done, and how we've had moments. So we seek to also interview these people and to hear from them for their own account of how they have been doing, what they have been doing and been doing so well.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we're getting some views here from Salaka Feast in Pembroke. I mean, and that was quite a powerful performance there. And I know you, Mr. Taylor, you were at the heart of that.
No, I was in the heart of it in the heart. I didn't actually participate this year, but what is remarkable, you see the youthfulness.
Yes.
I am big on penetration. I'm even bigger on retention. I'm glad to see in many of the places it was very present in most of the places I've been able to go. You see that generation to generation, that handing down of the culture and the legacy. It's important that we do that because if we don't retain what we do through practice, then obviously the culture will die. And we're often seeing it happening in other places. And one of the things we use as our place, what we sell is this culture. We use it for the cruise ship, we use it for the airport, we use it for national festivals, the Carry Festival for Best Village. Almost everything we do and how we receive people who come to visit us is a pin to what we're able to showcase. And this is such a stimulating thing. I not just that, but look, our heritage being taught to the children. Again, you see, look at another child. So it's all about how we practice and preserve. So we do that through penetration, cultural penetration.
And I know it's no coincidence that the Tobago Heritage Festival always ends on Emancipation Day.
Because we are one of the first, we are in fact the first Caribbean country and one of the countries who have declared this as a holiday since 1985. And then, so it's good to see that even though we've come through a period where we were enslaved and the products of that and all that transatlantic period and the Middle Passage, and we still come out resilient, empowered, and we are proud people, and we are able to showcase that, and that's why we are doing that freedom walk. So we walk from Pigeon Point entrance alongside the Coliseum. We move all the way and turn into Storby, and it's at that point later on in the day we will do the ceremony where we seek to honor those persons and to make mention and to showcase the legacy that we have inherited. And so proud to have as part of those things that we consider God-given and God blessed and God kept.
Now, when we saw in Trinidad yesterday the arrival of the king from Ghana, from the Asante tribe. For the Asante people, I should say. But could you give us an idea if Tobago would be involved in his visit in any way?
There is a conversation, and we are making arrangement. Of course, some of these things are time sensitive.
Yes.
And how it can also fall into what are some of the plans they're having. But it's on the drawing board. Again, and the day in itself will be able to tell us how this may come to fruition. Actually, it would be remarkable for such a thing to happen again, as we seek to pay homage our ancestral lineage and how we are attached to those things and those people and those places. And the King of Ashanti and the fact that he's part of the golden stools era and how we can use that as long as there are places in Tobago that has been fashioned out of the Ashanti practices.
And can you just talk about that a little bit more? Tell us about the connection that that exists within our society.
Well, I know for a fact that that whole West African presence and its influence in Tobago. At one point, there is a dance, it's called the Ashanti. There are elements of the song that's very present in the things that we do and the dances that we do. There's a dance of the Ashanti. Pembroke has been known to do it. I'm being told that in other areas so it also presents an opportunity for us to dig deeper into another aspect of our heritage, because what we have common is things like the Igbo and the Congos and those kinds of things, but they are soft trail, and I'm really hoping that his intended visit, if it can happen, that it becomes a reality, because we would then be able to use it to trace the line again, finding footprints that have led us to our freedom.
And tell me a bit about emancipation itself and what that should mean for our people. Like when we talk about celebrating Emancipation Day, what should be our thought processes and so on? What should be our focus?
I think emancipation to all of us should mean a lot of different things. In one way, it should be about self empowerment, about self actualization, how we position ourselves. It should be about the resilience. It should be about how we reignite and ignite in some cases some of those things that has kept us back, and how we use it against a background of technology and modernization, how digitalization, how we use in this century, the what does it mean to us? Yes, we've been past the shackle, we've been past, but again, like Bob Marley said, the freedom really comes when you emancipate yourself, your mind, and when you're able to look at things, be honest first with yourself, and like Shakespeare said, to your own self be true, and then it would follow. You can't lie to any man. So we first have to be honest with ourselves. And in this case, I want to draw the example of the festival. We need to see what works. How does it work? Will it work? Can it work? Can it continue to work? So the things that we do, how do we really place the true value apart from this 2 week festival? How do we use that to really bring the cohesiveness and the social progressiveness that is necessary? But more than that, the economical uphill and how the road that we need to travel, given all that we have as a financial economic decline. How do we use this as a bargaining tool in the wider world? How we use it in Tobago to place ourselves ahead of the game and use it to get us to those places. And it's not just about showcase. How do we get the practice that is necessary, that it competes against other emerging trends, the cell phone and the iPhones and the digital era? How do the Facebook and the Instagram, how do we get a child to go back to pitching marble? And how do we get them to move that into a book? How do we get that person to learn to write a song? How do we get the other people, the other Garvey and the other people to move from skin calypso to winning the crown? How do we change the game in such a way that it's not just only about fair play, but about development of the society, creating more innovators, and larger than that, creating entrepreneurs so that we can be self-sustained and not just dependent on the public purse.
Right. And then, I mean, I know throughout this whole time, there's been a heavy focus on stakeholder engagement.
Precisely.
And there's been so many consultations that took place, even though the public or the larger public may not be aware, but there's been constant stakeholder engagement throughout. What have you seen anything coming out of it that we can work on?
Well, if I go back recently, I was part of one that was the heritage think tank. We had what we call a sort of version of a symposium, and we saw an opportunity. There was so many things that were the opinions of so many people, and not just the great people like Dr. Mark and Dr. Eason but Bob, and so we saw or what we call village people who experience it from a local standpoint, Kandace, and who were able to make some really critical suggestions. Because what was called was frankament. And the time has come for Tobago to be honest with ourselves, to be frankament about what we do. Is it because we've been doing this 30 plus years? Does it mean that we should continue that direction? And if not, then what are the direction we are? What are some of those things that we are willing to give up? And what are some of those things that we embody costs for? Is it the time, has the time come for us to move some of these that we have in the village into a place that's larger than that? So it can be properly documented that people who are opposed to going into other spaces are free from mud, free from slush, but you're able to really sit in a place, another Carnegie Hall, another anywhere else that you can sit and truly imagine a space where you can really place this really excellent product that we call our heritage, where there are so many excellent people in Tobago, but they're excellent in their own way, but in their own space, but largely unknown. So how do we get that to get the other person out there? How do we see another with Duke? How do we get that? Another Wakanda, another leaving Tobago, going to out there and really making it. Another Wendy Fitzwilliam, another, and there's so many people. Another here's another Claude Noel. So many people who needs a platform. I really think that Tobago culture should be a springboard for a lot of those things, so we can impact and have an opportunity to contest the world stage from the center and not from the side.
Certainly, and we're looking forward to see how
Certainly.
the division would be able to play that role and to, get our people out there.
And I think that because in this case, because I have been around for 30 plus years, but I've never been in the engine room. So it's not only is fired up, it's fired at, it's fired from. So I am now better able to understand and appreciate some of those. And so I'm so happy for the opportunity. And yes, some of the systems, some fail, some border fail, but largely there are a lot of things that we walk away from now knowing what works. And if you know what the problem is, then certainly you can make an attempt to fix it. And that's what we're trying to do. Fix the thing that we can. Maybe not all together, but one day at a time.
One day at a
I
time,
believe we can
certainly.
make it if we try.
Certainly. And I mean, as we're getting ready to wrap this morning, we're basically out of time. It's 9 o'clock this
Yes,
morning.
thank you so
But
much.
I mean, it's Emancipation Day and
Yes.
coming up
Tomorrow,
tomorrow.
9 o'clock, we gather, 10 o'clock, we process, and 12 o'clock, we honor. And there's always the opportunity for you to eat some good Creole food and to enjoy a splash in the beach. It's time to relax, release, exhale, unwind.
And certainly, Mr. Taylor is looking forward for that.
Yes, certainly. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for joining us
Thank
this
you,
morning.
Kandace.
And viewers, it's been my pleasure being with you. And I hope you have a safe and wonderful day today as well as tomorrow. Whether you are joining the celebrations at Pigeon Point or you're heading out to country or whatever you're doing, just be safe. And we'll see you again on Wednesday.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning.